Hi folks, I'm out in the woods again today, but I'm bringing a little bit more with me than I usually would. We're trying out a sledge that I made several years ago for ice fishing, and it works great out on the lake. We're going to see how well it works in the woods. Going to go take a nice cold midwinter's day hike and have a nice big pot of wilderness stew and take a look at just exactly what I carry with me on a normal day in ice cold northern weather like this with a Stone Age mindset. So come on, let's go. It's getting cold standing here. So I'm almost to where I'm going to be setting up camp for the rest of the afternoon. But I found a couple of resources here that are going to be real helpful once I get there, because it's 12 degrees out, which is fairly chilly, but I'm working real hard to move that sledge over there, because the snow's a little deeper than it usually is on the frozen lake that I built it for. So I'm stopping on my way to grab some resources for when we start our cook fire, because I'm going to want a good fire going once I stop and start to cool off, because as hard as I'm working, as much as I'm sweating, it is still only about 12 degrees. So once I start to cool off, I've made the mistake of getting wet, I'm going to cool off real fast. And I don't necessarily want that. Now this here is a river birch. The outer layers of bark come off real easy like that. They're very papery, and just like white birch, which you usually think of as birch. This bark has a lot of oil in it, and it's really good tinder. So that's going to go a long way. That's going to go a long way toward helping us get a really good fire. Made it to the campsite, not without a great deal of effort. Point of note, my ice fishing sledge is much better suited to open lakes than it is to woodlands, forest. But now that we're here, I'm going to get a fire going and make a bit of lunch. To do that, I need dry tinder and dry kindling. Now, here we've got kindling, which will be helpful, not too far off from where we're going to be having lunch. Back over here, we've got a bunch of ferns, which look to be pretty good for tinder, at least the outer layer of our bird nest. We'll get that gathered up and get our tinder bundle together and see what we can do with a bow drill in winter conditions. Couldn't ask for a nicer day, even if it was a heck of a lot of work to get here. Now, when I go out into the woods to try and experience what our ancestors might have experienced on a normal day, there's a few things that I always take with. And today we're going to just take a quick look at what those consistent things are. And it really comes down to, well, three, but we're going to say four for today. That's flint, fire, fiber, and forage. Now, the reason that I've lined them all up that way is because, it's a great alliteration. It's easy to remember. Flint doesn't have to be flint, but I always have a cutting tool, stone tool. And actually, on a typical day, I'm carrying three with me. I have my knife there, and I use mainly for meat. I have a small sort of a basalt pocket knife that I typically actually use for fireboard and hearthboard construction, that sort of thing, making my fire kit. And a little bit larger equivalent piece, almost a hand axe, but I'd call it more of an all-purpose preform. I use this a lot for gathering tinder, scraping bark, cutting hand drill spindles, things like that. But I always carry at least a couple of these with me, and along with the stone blades, stone tools, I carry an antler tine for pressure flaking, to touch up the edges, resharpen them when they've been used. Now, fire, of course, at this point in the video, you will have seen that we started a fire with my fire kit here. I have a bow drill and a hand drill tied in here because it's the same kit that I use for demonstrations. Typically in the warmer summer weather, I'll use the hand drill just because it's less steps and it's fun to do. At 12 degrees and breezy like today, it was bow drill weather. As I'm wandering through the woods, like you've already seen, I gather tinder and kindling. I gather materials to start my fire because it may not be where I am when I decide to stop for the day, or when I decide that it's time for a little bit of lunch. Can't beat the view, can't beat the stew. Now, fiber is a little bit of a misnomer. It's string, cordage. And it's not all fiber. I always like to carry some plant fiber string with me because as string, as cordage, I can use it to tie stuff up and use it for all the things that I need string and cordage for. Repairs, bindings, traps, what have you. But I also always carry buckskin cord for the same reason. Now, this won't do me any good for starting a tinder bundle, but I can use it for a bow drill. I can use it to repair shoelaces, bootlaces, to make traps, make fish lines, tie stuff back together, make shelters, a whole deal. And a handful of 2 and 3 foot lengths of string stuck in a pocket doesn't take up any space, adds very little weight, but it's absolutely invaluable in a wilderness setting like this. A forage is a little bit flexible. A lot of times I'll bring something with me. It's hard work trudging through the woods, dragging a sled on snowshoes, or paddling a canoe or a kayak up and down the river, hunting and surviving, living off the land. Just like our ancestors, it's worthwhile to carry some food with you. The soup that I've made today is all dried stuff from last fall and last winter. It's just been preserved and kept good for food now, because I've been walking all afternoon out here in the woods, and I've seen one set of deer tracks from before the last storm, which was a couple days ago. There's not much moving out here today. So it's always worth it to pack a little bit of food. And in the winter months around here, there's not a lot to go after, but I always bring something to hunt with, or defend myself if need be. There are bears, cougars, bobcats, coyotes, wolves, all kinds of stuff potentially around here. But today I have my short bow and my rabbit stick, throwing stick. In the summer, most often I'll be carrying my fishing gear, which includes an atlatl, fish spears, that sort of thing. By carrying something to hunt with, cordage, materials to make traps with, and having a little local awareness about what's available seasonally, what kind of food is here, I can always give myself a meal. I have access to forage. Whether I carry it in, like the ingredients for my soup, or whether I find it on the landscape, like we'll be doing this spring and summer, hopefully. So right now, there's not a lot to forage off of the landscape. That's just a quick look, a little glance at what I carry, and well, yeah, what I carry, what I bring along for a winter season. So thanks for joining me next to the fire today. I hope you've enjoyed this hike as much as I have.